People who grew up in the 1990s may feel nostalgic about Surge, Shark Bites, and other discontinued foods from the era. And of course, those of a certain age will remember Zima, the clear malt beverage that was a huge hit when it debuted in 1993. But it wasn't long before Zima became a pop culture punchline.
You should go back to your strip malls and drink your Zimas and Smirnoff Ice. Yeah.
Today, we're opening up the history of Zima's epic rise and swift tumble into hazy, nostalgic memories. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave us a comment and let us know what other food or beverage-related topics you would like to hear about. Now, let's plunge into the cooler for a clearer look at Zima. Natural health trends of the 1980s led companies in the early 90s to begin producing clear products and marketing them as pure and more natural than, say, juice or artificially colored beverages. Crystal Pepsi was one of the first clear products, debuting in 1992 with a commercial featuring Van Halen, or Van Hagar if we're being honest about it. At least it wasn't Van Sharon. Although it graced the shelves for only about a year, it inspired dozens of other companies to jump on the clear trend, leading to colorless versions of everything from ivory dishwashing liquid to men deodorant. Before the eventual decline of clear products, Coors took a swing at the fad with the creation of Zima in 1994. The company bottled its products in clear glass bottles, with fancy ribbed sides, to market the drink as beer's classier cousin. Miller Brewing Company, then a rival of Coors, tried to compete by launching clear beer, but the venture flopped. Coors believed Miller's failure was a result of having beer in the name of its product, and tried to sell Zima as a beer alternative instead. Though it visibly resembles both, Zima was neither grain alcohol nor water, but a carbonated clear malt beverage. So one might ask, how was Zima made? Instead of rebranding or reformulating an old product with a new flavor, Coors created Zima through a method of its own invention. Using low-grade lager as a base and filtering it through charcoal, the process removed the beer's amber color, but it also stripped away the taste. Coors tried to get around this by pepping it up with citrus flavorings, ultimately creating a beverage with a 4.7% alcohol content. The flavor, however, turned out to be a problem for consumers.
It's terrible! Nobody drink the beer! The beer has gone bad!
The responses of several Reddit users when asked about the Zima experience suggested why the product didn't last very long. They compared the taste of Zima to lemonade filtered through aluminum foil, citrus-flavored horse piss, and a mixture of Sprite, grain alcohol, and balls. Citrus-flavored horse piss. Just like Mom used to make. During the 1980s, somewhat health-conscious consumers preferred wine coolers over drinks with heavier alcohol content. And by the early grungy 90s, rapidly declining beer sales forced producers to add some fizz to their marketing. Coors' new, clear, citrus-flavored carbonated malt beverage seemed primed to take advantage of the increasing popularity of wine coolers. So the company turned to lexicon branding to name its creation. The firm came up with the Zima, which means winter in Russian. Russian winters. Yeah, cool. Now that it had a unique communist name, Coors aimed to market its product to men who wanted something other than beer but more masculine than a wine cooler. Coors gave specific instructions to liquor stores to make Zima stand out and went out of its way to avoid any association with those vile wine coolers. Coors even went so far as to ask stores to keep Zima displays away from the wine coolers. Male drinkers, the line of thinking was, considered wine coolers a female-oriented beverage and would shun Zima if they thought it was just another frou-frou drink. Television commercials depicted men enjoying Zima in bars, while relishing the experience as something different. Oh, that's clever. Coors spent millions on advertising in its bid to attract young men to the product. Unfortunately, men also decided to drink something different after tasting Zima. Aside from its taste, apparently men didn't consider it manly enough. So guys were not keen on Zima, but you know who were? Women. Despite the manly marketing barrage, lots of young women developed a taste for the drink and became Zima's biggest market. Much of the attraction was that the drink contained a reasonable amount of alcohol, but wasn't as heavy as beer. Once women became Zima's primary demographic, it wasn't only the taste that drove men to consume other alcoholic beverages. They saw Zima as a drink designed for women, exactly the opposite of what Coors was trying to accomplish. Coors spent $38 million to promote Zima during its debut in 1994. In addition to a video series and video game, Coors launched one of the first websites to advertise a food product and create a community around it. Cheers to you, Tribe Z. The company also made a series of memorable television commercials that featured uniquely stylish personalities, instead of the mainstream attractive people commonly used in booze advertising at the time. These efforts paid off, and Zima became an instant success. According to Coors, about 70% of legal-aged drinkers tried Zima in 1994. The company sold 1.3 million barrels that year alone. But despite the massive marketing effort behind it, Zima obviously wasn't as tasty as its advertising led many drinkers to believe, and consumers turned elsewhere. While Coors initially believed that its clarity would make Zima trendy, the lack of color also appealed to some unintended fans, underage drinkers. Zima quickly attracted the attention of teens since it resembled water and could be easily hidden. And of course, teens will drink anything they can get their hands on. Teens also liked that the drink didn't smell like alcohol, because teens don't know what taste is. Many drinkers enhanced the taste of the product by adding flavored schnapps or Jolly Ranchers, further enticing underage palates. Rumors circulated that Zima would not register on a breathalyzer, alarming parents and the brand's parent company. Officials in 10 states sent a letter to Coors accusing it of purposely marketing Zima to young people. In response, the company created a video showing a police officer consuming several bottles of Zima before taking a breathalyzer, proving the alcohol would indeed register, because Zima contained alcohol, not magic. Coors also sent letters to school superintendents and police chiefs in which they claimed, Zima, like any alcohol beverage, contains ethanol, the ingredient that registers in any breathalyzer test. Zima is still detectable despite its clear profile. Coors struggled to help Zima stay afloat for several years after its initial release in 1994. New television commercials were created featuring Zima drinkers engaging in manly activities like football. But the product's enduring reputation prevented it from gaining popularity. That Zima became a recurring punchline for David Letterman certainly didn't help. In 1995, Coors went for the Hail Mary and changed its formula, introducing Zima Gold. It had a higher alcohol content and a caramel urine coloring, and tasted more like a mixture of Coke and bourbon. But drinkers did not go for it, and it was pulled from shelves only 3 months later due to a lack of sales. Even so, Coors refused to completely give up on Zima. After the failure of Zima Gold, the company tried marketing the product as an ideal way to quench thirst on hot days, and reformulated it to taste like Sprite. By 2004, competition from the always pleasant Smirnoff Ice led Coors to create a more intense product called Zima XXX, which came in a variety of extreme flavors and had a higher alcohol content. Ultimately, Zima was unable to duplicate its early brief success. Sales continued to dwindle for the next 2 years. Although Zima may have enjoyed a long and prosperous life with a niche following, laws in 2 states ended up dooming the drink. In 2008, Utah passed a law requiring all malternative drinks to use all caps and bold font to label their alcohol content on packaging. Coors, now merged with Miller as Miller Coors, hesitated, as printing labels to be used on products sold only in one state would be expensive and time-consuming. The end result was Zima being pulled from shelves in Utah altogether. That same year, California raised the tax rate that the company would be required to pay for Zima by treating it as a distilled spirit, not a beer. The state believed doing so would discourage underage drinking, as minors may not have the cash to afford the price hike. With new problems introduced by the California law in mind, the company decided that Zima was more trouble than it was worth, and discontinued the product. While consumers can no longer find Zima on American shelves, the product never left stores in Japan. In fact, outside of special limited releases, Japan is now the only place in the world where Zima is sold in stores, bars, and nightclubs. The product has been embraced not just by Japanese drinkers, but by the company's original intended market, men. Finally, we're selling booze to men. Hallelujah. As of 2014, men in their 20s reportedly consumed Zima each month at more than twice the rate of women. Since the product never left Japanese shelves, nostalgia isn't responsible for its success. According to Molson Coors Japan brand manager Kyoko Okochi, the popularity of Zima in Japan is instead due to a different marketing approach. While American drinkers were tempted with ads featuring young men who wanted to be different, Japanese consumers were shown commercials featuring scantily clad women and a famous actor urging them to be cool and popular. Japanese Zima also benefited from local flavors. In addition to the original product, drinkers in Japan can try a pink cherry blossom flavored Zima. After years of trying and failing to get men to drink Zima, Coors swallowed its pride and accepted women drinkers as Zima's primary audience. In 2007, the company reformulated Zima once again, introducing a variety of fruity flavors. In order to better attract young women, the company lowered the alcohol content and advertised the new Zima's low-calorie count. At this point, Coors realized Zima would never match its initial success. So it tried to build the beverage as a niche product. Though this strategy worked for a while, Coors discontinued Zima in America only a year later. Nostalgia kept Zima in many consumers' minds, however, and re-releases proved people would buy it, even if they joked about drinking it. So, why do people still remember Zima? Nostalgia can be powerful, so it's probably no surprise that Zima was brought back for a limited release in the summer of 2017. It was such a hit, in fact, that Miller Coors decided to do the same thing the following year. Speaking about the 2018 re-release, senior marketing manager Delaney Fernando said, "Everyone needs to try Zima once. It's a novelty. And for most people, apparently, once is enough." While Zima may no longer be around in the US, it is a precursor of many of the beer alternatives available today. Coors may not have attracted the market it wanted, but it did prove consumers had an interest in non-beer malt beverages. Other brewers noticed this open market and began creating their own alternatives, including Bacardi Silver, Mike's Hard Lemonade, Smirnoff Ice, and White Claw. Malternatives have been largely marketed towards young, trendy people and have gained popularity at clubs and parties, and of course, among pranksters. So what do you think? What would you rather have, a Zima or a Bartles & James wine cooler? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other delicious videos from Weird History Food.